Welcome back to Terror by the Bay. I'm David. Okay, this is going to be a what-if video. I think I've seen some interviews that were done with Todd Blanche, Trump's lead attorney. It was asked on CNN. He was being interviewed on CNN by Kaitlyn Collins. And she was asking about Trump's gripe to reporters that key witnesses had not been summoned. And Collins said, what about Keith Schiller or Alan Weisselberg as two examples? And asked why Blanche did not call on them to make an appearance in Rashawn's court. And Blanche replied, well, because we happen to live in America and we don't have the burden of proof. And so that's not the point. That question's a loaded question that should not be asked of a defense attorney or a defendant. Really? He continued, the question that we asked of the jury and that they ultimately obviously got past is why the prosecution didn't call those witnesses. As a defense attorney, you don't go into a case saying, I'm going to fill the holes of the prosecution, right? And Keith Schiller and some other witnesses that were not ultimately called, in our view, should have been called by the prosecution, and we asked the jury to take a hard look at that. I don't know whether they did or did not, but they voted to convict. Elsewhere, let's see, he said that his client didn't get a fair trial. Blanche said that a forthcoming appeal might center on accusations of bias. Okay, but in this article, and she pushed back. Like, well, basically she asked, it's like, well, if you thought that they would have helped the defense, why wouldn't you call them? And that's what he was responding to. It's like, it's a great question. You know, you're saying that the prosecution has to call them to fill in the gaps and you don't want to? Well, why didn't you do it? You know, if Keith Schiller or Alan Weisselberg could have provided the evidence that this was all faked or all wrong, why didn't you call them? Don't you think your client would have wanted that? Or, if you're not going to call them, why don't you call Donald Trump to be a witness in his own defense? Obviously, he doesn't have to testify in his own defense. So, which probably tells you how problematic. Now, with Weisselberg, we pretty much, without knowing any further details, just like they were vilifying Michael Cohen because he's a convicted liar and had committed perjury and such. And guess what? So did Alan Weisselberg. And they both did it for Trump. And they both went to prison for Trump. So, there's the pot calling the kettle black. You can see why Weisselberg's problematic. But Schiller, what about Schiller? Why he could have said, yeah, Cohen never talked about this on the phone, about asking about Stormy Daniels or something along those lines. So I would just want to throw cards and look at the what if. Like ask, okay, why wasn't Keith Schiller called? And what would have happened if he testified? We'll do the same thing with Weisselberg and then Trump at the end. Okay? This will be entertainment purposes only and very entertaining. Let's see. Why wasn't Keith Schiller... Or what's the energy around Keith Schiller? Why wasn't he called as a witness by the defense in the Trump trial? Page of Wands. Young person taking action. I have my suppositions that he basically said he would have told the truth. Let's see. Page of Wands crossed with the Tower. Because he knows where the bodies are buried. He could have led them to all... There would have been more charges that would have come out. Oh, God. Because, yeah, Trump's like, there's no way. Trump told him, you're not calling Keith Schiller. There's no way. Keith Schiller has so much dirt on Donald Trump, more than Michael Cohen does. Keith Schiller, especially if he's telling the truth under oath, he could have, oh my God, this is bad. It would have been really, really bad. Yeah, on Trump, no less. Because, he's around Trump with all the things that he does. In the past, we had the King of Wands. This could be, we go from the King of Wands would be relegated to the Page of Wands. King of Wands, somebody in charge taking action. So this is Keith Schiller in the past as his bodyguard, protecting Trump, making sure that the emperor is always protected. In this thing, he's walking away from his rule, and he's now more like a scout or an adventurer or a leader taking people down the path. Current situation. Keith Schiller, I think, is under no illusion. He knows Donald Trump can protect him on some things, but this is not one of them. And he's seen what happened to Weisselberg and Cohen when you try to protect Trump from himself. So Weisselberg ended up going to prison. Cohen ended up going to prison. Guess where Keith Schiller understood what was going to happen if he tried to testify for Donald Trump? Guess who figured out what was going to happen? Overarching energy is the Page of Pentacles here. Again, he's not paid enough to lie for Trump, and he still has his whole life in front of him. And you can imagine how much of a burden it's going to be when you've been convicted of lying to a jury, committing perjury. And, I don't know if it might be a felony. His life, his ability to earn a living is going to be gone. Trump's only alive for so long, and then he's going to have to go looking for work. Who's going to hire him? So he told Trump he's not going to volunteer any information, but don't call me. I don't want to testify. Basically, he said, you know what? I don't want to testify. I'd be a hostile witness for these guys, but I'm not going to lie. I'd rather be your bodyguard, and let's just leave it at that. This is the business arrangement. I'm not, basically, he's not going to lie to you. The outcome is the Knight of Cups. Probably the best move on his part. It allows him to maintain his friendship and trust with Donald Trump because he never betrayed his trust, because he never got put in a position where he has to betray that trust. Okay. So, that's Keith Schiller. Why didn't they put him on there? Because he knows where the bodies are buried. And stuff he might have testified to might have led to more, not only would have led to convictions in this case, which happened anyway, but probably would have led to more grand juries, more indictments, more trials, and things along those lines. Just better to leave that that sleeping giant sleep. He doesn't want to betray Trump. He likes the gig, and so he wasn't going to volunteer to go to the prosecution, but Trump couldn't call him either. Now, here's the question: if Schiller had testified in the trial, give me the energy around what would have happened if he had testified in the trial. Okay, maybe just do a 4-carder on that one. What would have happened if Keith Schiller had testified in the trial? Queen of Wands, how interesting, because he's the King of Wands in the past, the Page of Wands in the current situation. He probably would have answered the questions. He may not have answered the questions fully. He would try to reserve some information, but for the most part, he would have answered the questions truthfully and honestly because he's not going to perjure himself. Yeah. Absolutely not going to perjure himself. He knows perjury. He knows what would happen if he lied. He was not going to lie. Center needs the Ace of Wands. Again, he would have been able to put people, just like Cohen. He would have been able to put people in situations and describe what they were doing, and he could have talked maybe even about motivations. High energy and low energy. Big pushes or the Fred Flintstone stick here. He would have... Yeah, oh, God. A pair of aces. What's underneath it? Queen of Pentacles. No, the doorman. There might have been other women, other money things with pregnant women or something like that he knows about, that he's dealt with. He had to take action on. He knows the truth about things. Yeah, he wasn't going to lie. There would have been information about either other financial crimes or relationship crimes. Women that Trump has been with, that, maybe, there's all that rumor about Trump having impregnated other women and demanding they get abortions type of thing. He probably knows something about that. Probably had to take action and make arrangements for things like that. And if they asked him questions like that, he would have given answers. So it would not necessarily have helped move this case much forward. I think they already had enough, but it would have opened the door to other stuff that Trump was doing. That would be as damaging and embarrassing to Trump as anything he endured in this trial. So that's why Keith Schiller, it's kind of like David Pecker has all that information too. And David Pecker, I'm sure, did not testify with everything that he had. Hope Hicks did not testify with everything that she had. Pecker, his comment was funny at the end. It's like, now I continue to hope to have a great relationship with Donald Trump. Nice little coded phrase for, you come after me, I've got a vault full of incriminating stuff. I will bury you with it. Friends? Oh, just a pair of scorpions, man. Just a pair of scorpions. All right. Mr. Weisselberg. Mr. Weisselberg. What would have happened? What's the energy around Alan Weisselberg and this trial? Why didn't they call it Weisselberg? Queen of Wands. Again, somebody who has knowledge, somebody who has information. Crossed with Temperance. And the Devil. Okay. Now, the prosecution doesn't... They know Weisselberg has the answers here. But they don't trust Weisselberg because of his fealty to Donald Trump. He's already lied in courts twice. So why would you trust him to suddenly tell the truth? For Trump's team, they know he knows where the bodies are buried too. And he's in prison, and he might start thinking that if I commit perjury again in this trial, I'm going to be going to prison for an even longer time. I may not come out on my third perjury charge. So they weren't sure they could trust him. They weren't sure they could go to the well a third time, that they could cut him some sort of deal that would prevent him from talking. So neither side could trust Alan Weisselberg to either tell the truth, or in the case of the prosecution, or to keep quiet in the case of the defense. In the past, we got the Three of Pentacles. Alan Weisselberg's part of the conspiracy. Michael Cohen, Alan Weisselberg, Donald Trump. That's your trifecta of conspiracy for Trump in this case. Current situation, he's in jail. He's in prison for another 3 to 5 months. He's in prison for another 5 months. He's cooling his heels. He's off fresco in Rikers Island. And he may not, for Trump's worried, he may not be real happy about his current situation here. Yep. Weisselberg knows the answers, just like Schiller knows salaciousness, relationships and stuff. Weisselberg knows all the financial skeletons, where all the financial bodies are buried. And maybe, just maybe, if you asked him, he would tell you. He might plead the fifth. He might tell you. Here's your 5 here for pleading the fifth. That nobody knows what he was going to say, and they didn't want to find out. Lesson learned, Page of Cups. Yeah, because you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know when he's telling the truth. You don't know when he's lying. And from the prosecution's point of view, you can't call him up there It would be like how Trump's team attacked Michael Cohen. He's a lying liar who lies. Oh, except for that part where he said he embezzled $30,000. He was telling the truth there. It'd be the same thing with Weisselberg. They would say for the stuff that they wanted him to support, he would say things that, oh, that was the truth. And then he'd perjure himself and lie on something else. And then they'd say, oh, well, that stuff was a lie. And Trump's team would be the exact opposite. The stuff that the prosecution thought was true, they would say was a lie. And the stuff they said was a lie was going to be true. It wasn't going to help the jury at all. Alan Weisselberg is... who knows where his loyalties lie? Nobody knows where his loyalties lie. Outcome with that, Alan Weisselberg is going to get his money. He had a $2 million severance package. He's been paid like 60% of it. He's going to go to prison and he's going to collect the remainder of his money. He'll serve his time and go away, basically. A wealthy man who spent some time in prison with a golden parachute package. That's what would have happened. There were things of value he could have shed on the financials. That 10 of coins could show the whole Trump financial legacy issues going on. He has the ability to do that. He just may not have the capacity. Because what does he owe society? He wants the $2 million or the $750,000 that Trump still owes him. You know what I mean? You're not going to go ratting that out. That's a whole lot of money. Donald Trump. Okay, so, we haven't asked for Carter. What would have happened if Weisselberg had testified, though? If they actually did bring Weisselberg, swore him in, brought him up there, would he have testified? Would he have pled the fifth? The 5 of coins could have also been him pleading the fifth about money stuff. What's the energy around Alan Weisselberg? Had he been called to testify? What would he, especially by the defense, what would he have done? Burden. Would have been a burden for the defense? Would have been a big burden. What do we got here? Oh, because you got this agreement here, just like Schiller had. You have agreements in the past. You have underlying agreements. 9 of Wands. Waiting for, just tired of battling, tired of the next thing showing up. And then having to go from the 9 to the 10. Oh, this wouldn't have been good for his health at all. 6 of Swords. Not only would he be going back to prison, he'd be moving away from somebody. He'd either commit perjury and go back to prison, or he would have broken his agreement with Trump, and then when he gets out of prison, he's not going to get his money. Alan Weisselberg, if he had been called in there, he would have done whatever was going to be in Alan Weisselberg's best interest. Even though there's no 5s here, I think he would have pleaded the 5th on this one. I don't think he would have testified. In some ways, he's tired of lying for Trump. He's already got his severance package. If he tells the truth, the severance package goes away. If he lies and is caught, he's going away again for a much longer time, because that'll have been the 3rd perjury case. And so he has to think about what's in Alan Weisselberg's best interest. He probably would have just shut up. He would have pled the 5th on stuff. And, in Donald Trump's own words, only people that plead the 5th are mobsters, guilty people and mobsters, that type of thing. So what would the jury, and even though the jury's not supposed to infer from that, what do you think the jury's going to infer? So think about it, if the prosecution called him as their witness and he pleads the 5th, pleading the 5th seems to indicate maybe there's stuff the prosecution's hiding. If the defense calls him and he pleads the 5th, then it seems like it's information the defense doesn't want out there. I don't know. In the end, it wasn't going to help anybody having him up there. And Schiller was going to hurt Trump. So that's why they didn't do that. The prosecution didn't need Schiller. And Trump, as much as they would have liked to have had Schiller to counter some of the stuff that Cohen went out there, that's like that's like using tweezers dipped in cyanide to remove a splinter. The splinter's kind of minor and might be infected. You're better off just suffering through that than pulling the splinter out with some cyanide dipped tweezers, because that's going to be a lot worse for your long-term health. A little inconvenience that's now a poison pill. Yeah, no, not good. Now, Donald Trump. What would now? This will be the whole seven-carder here. What would have happened if Donald Trump had testified in his own defense? Actually, let's look at the energy around Donald Trump testifying. The magician, he would have made shit up. he would be off in La La Land, just pontificating, making stuff up, and with the infinity thing over his head, he would be ranting and cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Crossed with the Empress and the Hermit. He would have painted himself as the victim, the witch hunt, the judge's daughter. It would have been all these things, and they're just going after him because he's a wealthy person. Trump would have been, how to describe it? The Empress is about comfort, and it's also about entitlement. He would have said and done things that he thought were for his benefit, for like his emotional benefit, but they would have killed the case against him. The jury, basically, the jury would have seen this guy for who he is, and a lot of people would have seen who this guy is for who he is. Where if he just, what do they say? If you keep a pipe in your mouth, people might suspect you're an idiot, but if you speak, then they'll know. They'll get confirmation. It's that sort of thing. They think he's corrupt. They have a pretty good idea he's corrupt. The minute Trump's out there to speak, they're going to know he's corrupt. Everybody would have seen it. It would have been reported on. In the past, the devil, everybody who testified did it for, all the stuff that happened in this case. Look at that, 4 major arcana, was for the benefit of Donald Trump. And, Donald Trump is the center hub of this case. And he's going to come up there and he's going to just try and create his own reality. And it's not going to work. It would work on Fox News. It's not going to work in a court of law, because objective reality is the physics in real court, not the fake physics of Earth 2. He would have talked about how he didn't pay the money. He had no idea what was going on with the money. He would have thrown Cohen under the bus. He would have thrown Alan Weisselberg under the bus. He'd have thrown anybody under the bus that touched the money. He had claimed he had no knowledge of this whatsoever. He's a frugal man. Why would he? They tried that defense. Why would Trump pay you twice as much for the work? Why would he do that? But that's a reimbursement, which is the campaign finance fraud part of it. He would have basically implicated himself in the campaign finance fraud. Now, I don't see the attorney-client privilege defense. Maybe he would have been asking for that too, and the judge's like, that's fine, but you got it basically in order to do that, blame your attorney. You have to give up your rights, your attorney-client privilege, and you're confessing to the crime, but you're blaming your attorney. And he doesn't have the evidence to support that. Oh, God. He would have crushed himself. More major arcana, the Hanged Man. This isn't people looking at Donald Trump in a new light. Well, it kind of is. But he would have said and incriminated himself 20 times over. It would have been a disaster. Oh, it would have been amazing, but it would have been an absolute disaster. The lesson to be learned was it was a darn good thing they didn't let him go out there. That's the lesson to be learned. Trump can't, he's not an intellectually strong person, and any one of his defenses was fraught with danger because they contradicted himself, and he would throw both defenses out there showing the contradiction. People would just be seeing that. The outcome would have been the Knight of Cups. He just would have been, he would have come across as non-credible. He would have torpedoed his own case, and he would have lost credibility. It's like the people that carry his water would have nothing. They'd have nothing they could say or do. It's kind of like Trump saying the sky is red one day and then saying, but it's also green. And how do you defend, which of those do you choose? Is it red or green? He told you it's both. And they're opposite colors on the color band there. So which one is it? And it would be like watching Lindsey Graham twist himself in a drunken pretzel to help Trump up. Watching all these red tie congressmen that came out to support him, trying to explain how the sky could be red and green at the same time. It would have been a mess. It would have been an absolute mess. It wouldn't have helped anything, and it really would have been his undoing on that. So that's pretty much it for the what ifs. Keith Schiller knows where the bodies are buried. When is it going to lie? Alan Weisselberg knows where the money's buried, and nobody could tell if he was going to tell the truth or the lie. He was going to probably either self-serve Alan Weisselberg by calling the fifth, is my guess. Donald Trump, he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and he would have blown up in spectacular fashion. So there you go. That's what would have happened if these great defense witnesses would have been called. Let's end it here. Thank you very much for watching this video and supporting my channel. Thank you very much for feeding the algorithm with comments and shares and likes and all that. It helps it get out to a wider audience, to folks in that wider audience discovering this channel recently or for the first time. Welcome. I hope you found this reading insightful, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.